In a distant corner of the galaxy, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against an endless velvet sky, there existed a realm unlike any other. The planet Zorathia was home to the Lumini, an advanced alien species whose civilization thrived on harmony and balance. Their society was ruled by ancient traditions that had been woven into their very essence over millennia. Among these customs, none carried as much weight or significance as the arranged marriages orchestrated by the Royal Council, a practice designed to preserve bloodlines, strengthen alliances, and ensure stability across the cosmos. At the heart of this intricate system stood Queen Seraphina, the radiant sovereign of the Lumini. Her presence commanded awe. Her luminous skin glowed faintly with hues of gold and silver, shifting in response to her emotions. She bore the weight of leadership with grace but found herself ensnared in a predicament she could no longer endure. For years, whispers of discontent had brewed within her mind, though she dared not voice them aloud. The council had decreed her union with Prince Veen of the neighboring star system, a cold and calculating ruler whose ambition rivaled his ruthlessness. It was said he sought power above all else, and his marriage to Seraphina would consolidate control over vast territories, leaving little room for dissent or free will. But Seraphina yearned for something more profound than political maneuvering. Deep within her soul burned a desire for genuine connection, a bond forged not out of obligation but from mutual understanding and affection. As the date of her impending nuptials drew closer, her unease grew unbearable. Nights were spent staring at the swirling nebulae outside her palace windows, searching for answers among the celestial tapestry. Days blurred together under the oppressive shadow of duty, each moment pulling her further away from the life she secretly longed for. It was during one such restless evening that fate intervened in ways unimaginable. A sudden flash of light pierced through the opulent halls of the royal palace, startling guards and courtiers alike. Before anyone could react, a human man materialized before Seraphina's throne, clad in simple earth attire, jeans, a leather jacket, and boots scuffed from countless adventures. His name was Ethan Carter, an ordinary man who had lived an unremarkable life until now. He blinked rapidly, disoriented yet strangely calm, as if some part of him instinctively understood the gravity of what had just transpired. Ethan's arrival sent shockwaves throughout the palace. Courtiers gasped, murmuring amongst themselves about omens and prophecies. Guards raised their weapons hesitantly, unsure whether to treat him as a threat or a divine messenger. But it was Seraphina who stepped forward first, her glowing form radiating curiosity rather than fear. "Who are you?" she asked softly, tilting her head as though trying to decipher a puzzle written in the stars. I don't know how I got here," Ethan stammered, running a hand through his tousled brown hair. "One second I was walking down a street back on Earth, and the next—" He gestured vaguely at the alien surroundings, his eyes wide with wonder. "This place is incredible." Seraphina studied him intently, sensing something extraordinary beneath his humble exterior. There was no arrogance in his demeanor, only sincerity, and perhaps a flicker of destiny. Without fully comprehending why, she made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives forever. Turning to her advisors, she declared firmly, "This man has been brought here by forces beyond our understanding. He shall remain under my protection until we uncover the truth behind his arrival." The proclamation ignited a storm of protests. The council members argued vehemently, citing protocol and tradition. Yet Seraphina remained resolute, her authority unwavering. In that instant, a daring plan began to take shape in her mind, a way to escape the suffocating grip of her arranged marriage while embracing the unknown possibilities this stranger represented. Little did she realize, however, that her actions would set off a chain reaction far greater than either of them could have anticipated. As days turned into weeks, Seraphina and Ethan found themselves navigating a delicate dance between worlds. The Queen introduced him to the wonders of Zorathian culture, showing him gardens where bioluminescent flowers pulsed in sync with the rhythm of the planet's twin moons. They explored crystalline caverns filled with echoes of ancient songs sung by the first Lumini ancestors. With each shared experience, a tentative bond formed between them, a quiet camaraderie built on mutual fascination and respect. For Ethan, every moment felt surreal. He marveled at the floating cities suspended in the sky, their spires gleaming like shards of sunlight frozen in time. He learned snippets of the Lumini language, stumbling over unfamiliar syllables while Seraphina laughed gently, correcting him with patient encouragement. Despite the strangeness of his new reality, He couldn't deny the warmth growing inside him whenever he looked at her. There was something magnetic about her, a blend of regal poise and vulnerability that drew him in, making him forget the world he'd left behind. Yet, amidst the beauty and discovery, tension simmered beneath the surface. News of Ethan's presence spread quickly beyond the palace walls, sparking outrage among those loyal to Prince Veen. Whispers of betrayal rippled through the populace, fueled by rumors that Serafina intended to defy the council's decree. Some accused her of using Ethan as a pawn to manipulate public opinion, while others speculated darker motives altogether. Even within her own court, dissent grew louder. Advisors urged her to reconsider, warning of potential war should she abandon the alliance with Valen's kingdom. One evening, as they strolled along a bridge arched over a river of liquid light, Serafina finally confided in Ethan. "They see you as a disruption," she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. "To them, your existence threatens everything they hold sacred." "But I didn't ask to be here," Ethan replied, frustration creeping into his tone. "I'm just me. An ordinary guy who happened to stumble into something way bigger than himself." "You may not have chosen this path," Serafina countered, stopping to face him. Her luminous eyes searched his earnest expression. "But perhaps it chose you for a reason. Perhaps we were meant to meet." Her words hung heavy in the air, carrying implications neither of them dared articulate. It wasn't merely rebellion driving Serafina, it was hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe had conspired to grant her a chance at freedom. And for Ethan, who had always felt adrift in his mundane existence, the idea of being part of something larger than himself was intoxicating. Still, doubts lingered. Could their connection withstand the mounting pressure? Was it fair to drag Ethan deeper into a conflict he barely understood? These questions haunted Serafina as she wrestled with her conscience. Meanwhile, Ethan grappled with his own uncertainties. Who was he to challenge centuries-old traditions? What right did he have to interfere in matters so far removed from his world? Their fragile alliance reached a tipping point when Prince Veen himself arrived unexpectedly, flanked by a retinue of imposing warriors. His entrance was calculated, designed to intimidate. Clad in armor etched with runes of conquest, he strode into the grand hall with an air of entitlement that made even the boldest courtiers shrink back. When his piercing gaze landed on Ethan standing beside Serafina, a flicker of disdain crossed his sharp features. "So this is the interloper," Veen sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "A primitive creature from a backward planet." He circled Ethan slowly, assessing him like prey. "Tell me, human, do you truly believe you can compete with the legacy of two mighty empires?" Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the urge to lash out. Instead, he met Valen's glare with steely resolve. "I'm not here to compete with anyone," he shot back. "I didn't ask for any of this. But if you think you can bully people into doing what you want, then you're dumber than you look." A murmur rippled through the crowd, equal parts shock and admiration. No one had ever dared speak to Veen so brazenly. Serafina placed a calming hand on Ethan's arm, silently urging restraint. Yet, deep down, she felt a spark of pride ignite within her. This man, despite his flaws and fears, possessed a courage few could match. Valen's lips curled into a cruel smile. Brave words for someone so insignificant. But let us see how brave you remain when faced with consequences. With that, he turned to address the assembly. Your queen has disgraced herself and her lineage. By harboring this outsider, she jeopardizes not only her crown but also the future of our people. If she refuses to honor her vows, then I declare war upon Zorathia. Pandemonium erupted as courtiers erupted into panicked whispers. Soldiers shifted uneasily, hands hovering near their weapons. Serafina stepped forward, her glow intensifying with determination. You would wage war over pride, she demanded, her voice ringing clear above the chaos. Over the whims of a council clinging to outdated practices? My people deserve better than tyranny masked as tradition. Her declaration silenced the room. For the first time, cracks appeared in Valen's composure. He took a step toward her, his voice low and dangerous. Do not mistake my patience for weakness, Serafina. You have until the next lunar cycle to reconsider. Choose wisely, or suffer the consequences. With that ominous warning, Valen stormed out, leaving behind a trail of unease. As the hall emptied, Seraphina sank onto her throne, overwhelmed by the weight of what lay ahead. Beside her, Ethan knelt, gripping her hand tightly. "We'll figure this out," he promised, though uncertainty clouded his own thoughts. Together. Little did they know, their defiance had already set forces in motion that neither could foresee. Across the galaxy, alliances shifted, secrets unraveled, and ancient powers stirred. The stage was set for revelations that would shake the foundations of both their worlds, and test the strength of the bond they were only beginning to forge. In the wake of Prince Valen's ominous ultimatum, the atmosphere on Zorathia became charged with an electric tension that permeated every corner of the planet. The once serene streets of the floating cities buzzed with hurried conversations and furtive glances. Marketplaces, usually vibrant with the colors and sounds of daily life, now echoed with hushed debates about the looming threat of war. The Lumini, known for their peaceful nature, found themselves grappling with emotions they rarely encountered. Fear, anger, and a burgeoning sense of rebellion against the rigid structures that had governed their lives for generations. Back in the royal palace, preparations were underway to fortify defenses and strategize potential responses to Valen's aggression. Military leaders convened in the Grand War Room, poring over holographic maps that depicted possible invasion routes and vulnerable sectors of the planet. Seraphina, ever the composed leader, presided over these meetings, her luminous presence offering a semblance of calm amidst the brewing storm. Yet, beneath her stoic exterior, she wrestled with the enormity of the decisions before her. Each choice seemed to lead down paths fraught with peril, not just for her people but for the man who had unwittingly become central to this cosmic drama. Ethan, meanwhile, struggled to adapt to his newfound role. Though initially an outsider, he had quickly become a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for those who yearned for change. Citizens whispered tales of his bold confrontation with Valen, embellishing his words and actions with heroic flair. To many, he represented the possibility of breaking free from oppressive traditions, even if they didn't fully understand the complexities of his situation. This unexpected adoration weighed heavily on Ethan, who still saw himself as an ordinary man thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Their relationship deepened as they navigated the challenges together. Late nights were spent in the Queen's private chambers, discussing strategies and sharing stories of their respective worlds. Seraphina spoke of the history of the Lumini, their struggles, triumphs, and the burdens of leadership. Ethan recounted tales of Earth, its beauty, its flaws, and the resilience of humanity. Through these exchanges, they discovered parallels between their cultures, finding solace in the shared values of courage, compassion, and the pursuit of freedom. However, not everyone viewed their growing closeness favorably. Within the royal court, factions emerged, each advocating different courses of action. Some advisors urged Seraphina to send Ethan back to Earth, believing his continued presence only escalated tensions. Others saw potential in leveraging his unique position to rally support for reform. Amidst these divisions, whispers of conspiracy swirled, hinting at secret alliances and hidden agendas. Trust became a scarce commodity, and paranoia seeped into the highest echelons of power. One particularly tense evening, as rain lashed against the palace windows, casting eerie shadows across the marble floors, a clandestine meeting took place in the library. Here, ancient scrolls and digital archives coexisted, preserving the collective wisdom of the Lumini. Gathered around a circular table illuminated by soft, pulsating lights, a group of trusted allies, including several high-ranking officials and scholars, discussed radical ideas for averting war. Among them was Lyra, a brilliant strategist and longtime friend of Seraphina, whose keen intellect often balanced the Queen's emotional instincts. "We cannot fight Valen conventionally," Lyra asserted, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. "His resources far exceed ours. We must find another way. What do you propose?" Seraphina asked, leaning forward, her glow dimmed with concern. Lyra hesitated before speaking. "There are legends, ancient prophecies, that speak of a bridge connecting disparate realms. If we could harness this energy, it might allow us to negotiate directly with Valen's people, bypassing his influence." Ethan listened intently, intrigued by the notion. "You mean, like diplomacy without the middleman?" "Precisely," Lyra confirmed. "But accessing such power requires immense skill and sacrifice. Few have attempted it, and fewer still have succeeded. The conversation shifted to practicalities, exploring the feasibility of this audacious plan. As details emerged, it became clear that success depended not only on mastering complex rituals but also on uniting disparate groups within Zorathian society. This task fell largely to Ethan, whose outsider status paradoxically granted him credibility among skeptics. People listened to him because he had nothing to gain personally, embodying a purity of intent that resonated deeply. Days blurred into nights as preparations intensified. Training sessions were held in secluded chambers, where elders taught Ethan the nuances of Lumini magic, guiding him through meditative exercises designed to attune his mind to the planet's natural frequencies. Initially clumsy and frustrated, he gradually began to grasp the subtle interplay of energies, feeling a strange kinship with the land itself. Serafina watched his progress with pride, marveling at his adaptability and determination. Simultaneously, efforts to sway public opinion gained momentum. Speeches were delivered in crowded squares, rallies organized to galvanize support for peace. Images of Serafina and Ethan side by side circulated widely, reinforcing the narrative of unity and defiance against tyranny. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Doubters transformed into believers, inspired by the vision of a brighter future unshackled from the chains of tradition. Yet, amidst these strides, danger lurked. Spies reported increased activity along Zorathia's borders, suggesting that Valen was amassing forces for an imminent strike. Sabotage attempts targeted key infrastructure, sowing chaos and testing the resolve of the defenders. Every victory came at a cost, every step forward accompanied by setbacks that threatened to unravel their fragile progress. Through it all, Serafina and Ethan remained steadfast, drawing strength from each other and the cause they championed. Their bond transcended mere friendship, evolving into something profound and undeniable. Whether fate or coincidence had brought them together, they embraced their roles as catalysts for change, determined to forge a new path regardless of the obstacles ahead. As the final preparations unfolded, anticipation crackled in the air like static electricity before a storm. The day of reckoning approached, the culmination of weeks of relentless effort, sacrifice, and unwavering belief in the possibility of transformation. Serafina stood atop the highest tower of the palace, gazing out at the sprawling expanse of Zorathia bathed in the ethereal glow of its twin moons. Below, citizens gathered in the great plaza, their faces illuminated by flickering torches and hopeful expressions. They had come to witness history, united by a shared dream of liberation. Ethan joined her moments later, his presence grounding her amidst the swirling emotions. Together, they descended to the ceremonial chamber, a vast domed space adorned with intricate carvings depicting the Lumini's storied past. At its center lay the bridge, a crystalline construct pulsating with latent energy, waiting to be awakened. Elders formed a protective circle around it, chanting incantations that resonated through the chamber like a heartbeat. Lyra approached them, her expression grave yet resolute. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the rising crescendo of voices. Serafina nodded, her luminosity intensifying with resolve. "We have no choice," she replied simply. Ethan swallowed hard, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "Let's do this," he said, gripping Serafina's hand tightly. With synchronized movements, they stepped onto the platform surrounding the bridge. Instantly, the air thickened, charged with an almost tangible force. The elders' chants grew louder, weaving a sonic tapestry that seemed to suspend time itself. Colors danced across the chamber walls, reflecting the raw power coursing through the environment. Ethan closed his eyes, focusing on the lessons he'd learned, channeling the energy flowing through him into the crystal lattice beneath his feet. Suddenly, a blinding flash engulfed the room, followed by a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the palace. When the light faded, the scene had transformed. They stood no longer in the familiar confines of the ceremonial chamber but in a surreal landscape, a dreamscape where reality and imagination intertwined seamlessly. Towering monoliths of translucent stone stretched toward an endless sky streaked with ribbons of iridescent light. Figures moved in the distance, indistinct yet unmistakably sentient, drawn by the activation of the bridge. Serafina gasped, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what they had unleashed. "Is this Valen's realm?" she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "I think so," Ethan responded, equally awestruck. "But it feels different. Like we're seeing beyond the surface." Indeed, The atmosphere carried an undercurrent of melancholy, a haunting reminder of the pain and suffering wrought by centuries of conflict. As they ventured deeper, guided by an invisible pull, they encountered manifestations of memory and emotion, echoes of battles fought, lives lost, and dreams shattered. Each step revealed layers of complexity, challenging their perceptions and forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths. Eventually, they reached a clearing dominated by a colossal tree whose branches reached impossibly high, bearing fruits that shimmered like miniature galaxies. Beneath its shade sat a figure cloaked in shadow, exuding an aura of authority tempered by sorrow. It was Valen, or rather, a fragment of his essence distilled into this liminal plane. "You dare trespass here," he intoned, his voice echoing with multiple tones. "Do you seek to mock me further?" "No," Seraphina replied, stepping forward with unwavering conviction. "We seek understanding." "Peace." Valen laughed bitterly, rising to his full height. "Peace is a luxury afforded only to the weak. Strength demands dominion. And yet, your strength has brought you nothing but isolation," Ethan interjected, surprising even himself with the clarity of his insight. "You rule through fear, but what kind of legacy is that? Is this truly what you want, to be remembered as a tyrant?" The question hung heavy in the air, piercing through Valen's defenses. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes, revealing glimpses of the person he might have been without the weight of expectation crushing him. Around them, the dreamscape shifted subtly, responding to the unfolding dialogue. Seraphina seized the opportunity, extending a hand toward him. "Join us," she urged, her voice imbued with compassion. "Together, we can create a future where neither of our peoples need live in fear. Where love and cooperation replace hatred and subjugation." Valen hesitated, torn between pride and longing. The ground trembled slightly, mirroring the internal struggle raging within him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he lowered his gaze, nodding imperceptibly. Perhaps there is merit in your words." Before either Seraphina or Ethan could respond, the dreamscape began to dissolving back into the ceremonial chamber. Gasps erupted from the assembled crowd as the bridge dimmed, signaling the completion of its purpose. Exhausted but exhilarated, Seraphina and Ethan collapsed into each other's arms, aware that they had achieved something monumental. Yet, as the initial euphoria subsided, unsettling questions arose. Had they truly altered the course of destiny, or merely delayed the inevitable? What repercussions awaited them upon returning to their respective realities? And most importantly, how would their newfound connection endure the trials sure to follow? Unbeknownst to them, distant corners of the galaxy stirred with renewed interest in Zorathia. Observers who had watched events unfold with detached curiosity now contemplated intervention, driven by motives ranging from altruism to opportunism. Forces aligned and realigned, setting the stage for a broader confrontation that would test not only Seraphina and Ethan's resolve but the resilience of entire civilizations. Thus, the story continued, weaving threads of hope and uncertainty into a tapestry rich with possibility. The journey was far from over, and the true measure of their courage and commitment had yet to be revealed. As the initial triumph of their diplomatic breakthrough settled, a new wave of challenges emerged, each more intricate and unpredictable than the last. The ripple effects of Seraphina and Ethan's actions reverberated across the galaxy, drawing attention from entities both benevolent and malevolent. News of the activated bridge spread like wildfire, sparking debates in distant star systems about its implications for interstellar relations. Some hailed it as a beacon of unity, proof that even the most entrenched conflicts could be resolved through dialogue and understanding. Others viewed it with suspicion, seeing it as a destabilizing force capable of unraveling carefully maintained power structures. Back on Zorathia, the atmosphere remained charged with cautious optimism. Citizens celebrated cautiously, lighting lanterns that floated skyward in tribute to the fragile peace they hoped to preserve. Yet beneath the surface, fissures began to appear. While many embraced the prospect of change, others clung fiercely to tradition, unwilling to relinquish the comforts of familiarity. Protests erupted sporadically, fueled by fearmongers who painted visions of chaos should the old ways be abandoned entirely. Among these dissenters were members of the Royal Council, whose loyalty to Seraphina wavered under the strain of shifting allegiances. One evening, as Seraphina and Ethan walked along the edge of the floating gardens, They encountered a group of protesters chanting slogans decrying the alien influence corrupting their queen. Their words stung, not because they held any truth but because they underscored the deep divisions still plaguing their society. Ethan instinctively moved to shield Serafina, his protective instincts kicking in, but she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "They are afraid," she said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Fear often manifests as anger. We must show them there is nothing to fear." Her calm demeanor steadied him, though he couldn't shake the unease gnawing at his gut. "But what if showing them isn't enough?" he asked, glancing at the agitated crowd. "What if they refuse to listen?" "Then we find another way," she replied firmly. "Change rarely comes without resistance. It is our duty to persevere." Their exchange was interrupted by the arrival of Lyra, who approached with urgent news. Her usually composed expression was marred by concern. "There's been an incident near the border," she reported. "Reports suggest unauthorized ships have entered our airspace. They bear no markings, but witnesses claim they're conducting reconnaissance." Serafina's glow dimmed slightly, betraying her worry. "Who would dare violate our sovereignty now?" Lyra hesitated before answering. "Some believe it may be factions within Valen's empire, those loyal to his former ambitions. If word of his agreement reaches them, they may see this as an opportunity to seize control." The implications weighed heavily on all three. A splintered enemy posed an even greater threat than a unified one. Without clear leadership or accountability, rogue elements could act unpredictably, escalating tensions to dangerous levels. Determined to address the situation head-on, Serafina convened an emergency council meeting. Gathered around the holographic table once again, advisors debated strategies ranging from preemptive strikes to covert negotiations. Ethan listened intently, contributing insights gleaned from Earth's history of conflict resolution. His perspective proved invaluable, offering fresh approaches that challenged conventional Lumini tactics. Ultimately, Serafina decided on a dual approach, strengthening defenses while simultaneously reaching out to potential allies among neighboring star systems. She tasked Ethan with leading diplomatic missions, leveraging his growing reputation as a bridge builder between worlds. Though hesitant at first, he accepted the responsibility, knowing the stakes involved. Traveling aboard sleek spacecraft equipped with advanced technology, Ethan embarked on journeys that took him far beyond Zorathia's borders. He met leaders of diverse species, each grappling with their own struggles for survival and autonomy. Through these encounters, he discovered common threads binding them together: shared desires for freedom, prosperity, and mutual respect. Slowly but surely, alliances formed, bolstering Zorathia's position against potential threats. Meanwhile, Serafina focused on internal reforms, working tirelessly to heal the fractures within her own society. She introduced policies aimed at empowering marginalized communities, ensuring their voices were heard in matters affecting their futures. Public forums became platforms for open discussion, fostering transparency and trust. Though progress was slow, signs of healing began to emerge, evident in the gradual easing of tensions and the rekindling of hope among her people. Yet, despite these efforts, shadows loomed on the horizon. Whispers of a mysterious figure known only as the Architect began circulating, hinting at a mastermind orchestrating events from behind the scenes. Little was known about this enigmatic entity, save for rumors of unparalleled intellect and resources. Some speculated the Architect sought to exploit the chaos for personal gain, while others believed they harbored loftier aspirations, to reshape the galaxy according to their vision. Ethan first encountered mention of the Architect during a visit to a remote outpost orbiting a dying sun. There, he met an elderly sage named Kale, whose knowledge spanned centuries thanks to cybernetic enhancements preserving his consciousness. Over cups of steaming nectar brewed from rare celestial flowers, Kale shared cryptic warnings. "The Architect watches," Kale murmured, his mechanical eyes glowing faintly. "They see patterns where others see randomness. To them, your actions are pieces on a board, moves in a game you cannot yet comprehend." "What do you mean?" Ethan pressed, leaning forward. "Are they friend or foe?" Kale chuckled dryly. "That depends on whether your goals align with theirs. Beware, young human. Even the noblest intentions can become pawns in a larger scheme." The encounter left Ethan unsettled, planting seeds of doubt about the true nature of the forces shaping their destiny. Upon returning to Zorathia, he relayed Kale's words to Seraphina, who absorbed the information thoughtfully. "We must tread carefully," she concluded after a long pause. "Knowledge is our greatest weapon. Let us gather intelligence discreetly, uncovering the architect's motives before acting rashly." Thus, a covert operation was launched, spearheaded by Lyra and a select team of operatives skilled in espionage. Disguised as traders and scholars, they infiltrated key locations rumored to house clues about the architect's identity and objectives. Meanwhile, Seraphina and Ethan continued their outward-facing roles, maintaining appearances of stability while secretly preparing for whatever revelations might come. As weeks turned into months, fragments of information trickled in, painting a picture both fascinating and alarming. The architect appeared to operate through proxies, manipulating events indirectly to avoid detection. Their ultimate goal remained elusive, obscured by layers of misdirection and subterfuge. What became increasingly clear, however, was their fascination with the bridge, a tool they seemed determined to harness for purposes unknown. This realization sent shockwaves through the royal court. If the architect succeeded in controlling the bridge, the consequences could be catastrophic. Not only would it jeopardize the fragile peace achieved thus far, but it also risked unleashing untold devastation upon unsuspecting worlds. Faced with this daunting prospect, Seraphina and Ethan redoubled their efforts, pouring every ounce of energy into safeguarding their achievements. Together, they delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the bridge, seeking ways to fortify its defenses against external interference. Ancient texts were studied, forgotten rituals revived, and experimental technologies developed, all in pursuit of securing their future. Through it all, their bond grew stronger, forged in the crucible of adversity. Seraphina found solace in Ethan's unwavering support, his presence grounding her when doubts threatened to overwhelm. For Ethan, Seraphina represented everything worth fighting for, a symbol of resilience, compassion, and boundless possibility. Their connection transcended mere partnership, evolving into something profound and irreplaceable. And yet, amidst the trials and tribulations, moments of beauty persisted. Sunsets painted the skies in hues unimaginable, casting golden light over landscapes teeming with life. Children laughed in the streets, their innocence untouched by the complexities swirling around them. Love blossomed in unexpected places, reminding everyone of the enduring power of hope. But the question lingered, hovering like a specter over their journey. Would their combined strength prove sufficient to withstand the gathering storm? Or would the forces arrayed against them prove insurmountable, reducing their hard-won gains to ashes? Only time would tell. And so, they pressed onward, guided by faith in themselves and each other, ready to face whatever lay ahead.